What if manifesting isn't actually mystical, but instead measurable? What if aliens aren't embodied and have advanced ways of operating through conscious, concerted intention? What do these things have to teach us about our own human abilities? This week on Disco, we are thrilled, delighted, and humbled to be talking to Jordan Jozak, who, outside of his own choices or understanding, and without his parents' realization, grew up inside this strange overlap of psychic training, military secrecy, and consciousness research. From being tapped as a child for government telepathy programs to now building the Telepathy Center, Jordan is bravely coming forward to tell his story and is talking to Disco about the horrible traumas endured during his time in this government training program and how we can use this time of disclosure as a humanity to make progress and unify. Throughout this episode, we talk about his personal experience in this government program, as well as things like non-local consciousness, shared fields of awareness, and his mission moving forward, which is just as radical as it is gentle. Now is the time for us to take control of creating our future the way that we envision it to be, as a human species centered in love. I highly recommend you check out the show notes of this episode to get more information about Jordan, his involvement in a recent documentary called Skywatchers, and learn more about the things he's working on to progress this type of research. We hope you enjoy.
Disco, the podcast.
Disco, the podcast.
Hello, Jordan. How are you?
I'm so well. How are you guys? So great to see you.
Yes, so good to see you too. We're good. We are pumped to talk to you today. For listeners' context here, we met Jordan at Telepathy Camp. Telepathy Camp has just been like this gift that keeps giving. We all have a group chat, and it's the most magical thing. But we met Jordan at Telepathy Camp, and we mentioned actually in our Telepathy Camp episode, which if you haven't listened, go back and check it out. But Jordan guided our CE5 meditation and experience where and this is, for lack of a more delicate way to say this, where we summoned aliens. I know that's not totally accurate, but for anybody listening, just
we want to demystify that. Yeah. We're here to break that away.
Right, exactly. But if you're more curious about that experience, listen to our Telepathy Camp episode. But this wasn't just, a magic trick that you did for Telepathy Camp. This is truly your life's work. And while it was amazing at the time, I don't even think that I fully grasped then how amazing it actually was that we were able to experience that with you.
Yeah, how amazing you were. You kept that hidden pretty well.
And just given your background and history, I want to make sure that I'm doing you justice here in explaining what it is that you do. So you are a psionic, a telepath, a remote viewer, and you're doing a ton of research on consciousness, telepathy, and essentially how these things are pushing us towards the edge of human potential and growth. So there's a lot that we're gonna get into. Before we do, can you explain to us and listeners what a psionic is?
Yes, I can. A psionic is frankly, it's a militaristic term, right?
Okay.
So psionic is a term that was used by the Department of Defense within the United States to basically define individuals that had simply psychic gifts, right? Extrasensory perception, the ability to experience telepathy, the ability to remote view, or perhaps see and extract information about targets or a person, place, or thing just by using your mind, right? So a psionic was a term frankly on the governmental side.
Gotcha.
But really, it's just used to explain what we're figuring out now, is like this whole new evolving field of consciousness, right? And a psionic is just an individual who's been trained to basically tap into their own potential in that consciousness field.
Okay. Okay. We're going to talk a lot more about that. So, with all of that, as somebody who has experience as a psionic, you were also recently a part of a YouTube documentary series called Skywatcher, which focuses on, and keep me honest here, but the research and validation of UFOs, UAP sightings, and experiences, in which you used your psionic abilities to call in, and that's, again, excuse any
Yeah,
rudimentary
yeah, you're so
verbiage
good.
I
You're so good.
use here.
Yeah, I had to like we really in the lead up to
But
this call. I'm like, she's like, what is it, UFP or what is it? You like it's
I've said that acronym wrong so many
Yeah, in
times.
my day it was fucking UFOs, and now we got to call them UAPs.
so for listeners that are listening to this, right? My storyline arc is someone who basically not by choice, found themselves in this like military environment, right? And my storyline arc is like coming out of that and getting very much more into, what I think is like natural in nature,
Yeah.
and energetic, right? What's kind of funny in all of this is like even with the terms, it's like all acronyms. It's like governmental. It's like we need a CYC and a blah 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 and a blah blah blah, and it's just like makes it so much more difficult to talk about like, hey, like your thoughts are powerful, like like
Right. An
yeah,
already difficult thing to explain and talk about, just that much more difficult to
yeah,
explain and talk
yeah.
about.
So do not
So,
worry, you're so
yeah.
good. We're gonna leave them in the past. I'm not gonna leave
Okay.
them there.
Okay.
Let's care.
So, Skywatchers, the context I think for listeners is going to be really important. And there's a lot, I think, that after they listen, or even maybe before, maybe pause it, you can watch Skywatchers. Zach and I watched, and I think it's just really interesting context to understand what your abilities are and your role that you played in this docuseries where you're calling in via your psionic abilities,
Mhm.
telepathic abilities to call in these UAPs or
Mhm.
UFOs.
Okay.
And so we'll link to that if anybody wants to go and listen. And then in addition to that, you recently put out a video, and you mentioned already a couple of times that the word psionic, this comes from a military history with the research done on this topic, and you have personal firsthand experience working with government military programs
Mhm.
that are training, testing on children,
Yeah, yeah.
when it
It's
comes to,
uncomfortable. It's very
yeah,
uncomfortable. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And I do want to play that video. So for listeners, we're going to share the video that Jordan just released, and that I mentioned, so everyone just is on the same page. Okay. Like I said, I'm going to play the video that Jordan just released. I'll play about 7 to 8 minutes of it, but I really encourage you to go to the show notes, click the link to the full video because it's worth watching. For now, here's a clip of that video so you can understand the bravery and what it is that he's doing.
Hi, my name's Jordan Jozak. You may know me from the recent Skywatcher series, where myself, among other folks like Jacob Barber, gave testimony about our experiences in covert and compartmented programs. That was last year, August. I gave testimony in that video where I described my first-hand experience with non-human intelligence and the affiliated technology. Today is October 13th, 2025, and to date, no one from Congress has contacted me. So, I figured I'd like to tell my own story this time. Instead of going on big shows where everyone's trying to control a narrative and present their own flavor of the same pie, I think it's time we have an honest conversation about what's actually going on. And the truth is, it's not easy to explain. In fact, I'm not even sure if I know how to exactly explain it, but Here's the basics. If you watch the Skywatcher series, you saw me claim that I was in a psionic exploitation program between the years of 2005 and 2010. And if you're looking at me and trying to do the age comparison, well, you're right. I'm age 30. In 2005 and 2010, I was ages 9 and 14. This is one of the difficult things that we're going to have to navigate if we desire disclosure as a nation. There are very uncomfortable truths regarding the past programmatic nature of the program itself. And quite frankly, I didn't ask for any of this. I was scouted within the school system through the Gifted and Talented Education Network. In 2005, I began a relationship with a psychologist who would come into my school district, and I would begin to become separated from the rest of my classmates. This continued on, our relationship when my parents were not fully given the truth of why I was seeing a psychologist or why the school district was recommending that I would see them after hours. But this relationship progressed for a few years. What was happening during that time was I was progressing through the outer areas of a psionic recruitment program that, to my knowledge, has been running throughout the United States for some time. You don't have to look too far to look back at Gifted and Talented Education Initiatives, as well as TAG, Talented and Gifted Initiatives as well. The problem being is not all of that is bad. However, for those that are familiar with how intelligence operations work, they work covertly. They work through channels that carry plausible deniability. And that was the nature of what happened to me. In 2008, I was progressing and excelling within the program to the point that they removed me from the public school district. And for 2 years, I attended school at what seemed like a very normal, lockdown, scan in, scan out, off-site facility. My parents were just told that I was going there to get better. I just needed mental health treatment. But what they didn't know is that facility was a cover for a much larger program where I interacted with non-human intelligence and its associated technology. I interacted with a piece of technology known as Sylvia within the program. And that's where things get very difficult. Up to this point, the conversation within the Disclosure Network has been solely focused on the nuts and bolts characteristics, the UAP, the tech, the flying saucers, and everything else imaginable in the materialistic sense. But there's a big missing link in how we navigate this, and that missing link is consciousness. We need to have an honest conversation about ourselves. Psi has been a missing link not only within science, physics, but just our overall advancement and evolution as a human species. Components of the program are well familiar that consciousness is non-local. And what does that mean? Well, it means that our essence is more than our body. We can have out-of-body experiences, and we can perhaps imprint or even affect the reality around us. So what does that mean? Well, that means that you are very much in control of your own reality. Your thoughts do become things, and the whole age-old addict of The Secret or manifestation is, in my mind, things that are very true and things that I was trained on to exploit within the program. See, we weren't doing things like getting in a secret spaceship or going to underground bases and meeting with aliens. We were using consciousness technology that engaged with us, and they needed very special kids to do that. Within the program for those 2 years, I worked with autistic non-speakers, and the abuses that I saw committed were disgusting. While I was a kid who had a voice and could use my body, I could kick and scream when the experiments were getting bad. But for those that were non-speaking or non-moving, they had a much more difficult time. And there needs to be a serious investigation into this programmatic nature. Now, what is the program? Well, that's a whole other problem. Most people understand this component of a legacy program, which in my mind is exactly how the beginning started. However, more recently, every single agency has got their hands on either some aspect of this research or some aspect of the program itself. While everyone would love to think that there's a centralized, beautiful little board that has all this compartmented and they're just not releasing it, the real truth is shit is so much more messy than that. Let me tell you. I don't know exactly what the pathway forward is here, but we need to really rapidly scale up our research into consciousness. And I think right now AI is providing us the ability to take a rapid step. We don't need our government to tell us what we already know. The truth is out there, and there's many individuals like myself who are trying to find their voice to bring this to others. None of us want problems. None of us want to burn down the system, and none of us are sitting here on a soapbox telling you that you should feel bad for me. In fact, my story is much different. I did go through hell. Many other kids went through hell, and we worked firsthand in these programs at a young age. From that point forward, you either went further into the DoD establishment or you stayed on the outside, which I did for many years. I stand here today to take a stand, to challenge all of us to think differently. And that's why I'm launching 3 crowd-funded projects: Night Under the Stars, the Telepathy Center, and Legacy Voices.
I'm going to stop us right there, but I really encourage you to go and check out Jordan's projects. He's doing amazing work. We will link to all of them, so go check it out. And now we'll get back to our interview with Jordan. Jordan, you're doing something very brave by sharing this information and something that you experienced firsthand. So taking a step back, if you wouldn't mind telling us how this all began for you.
Yeah, definitely. And let me set the scene a little bit,
Yeah.
for listeners that like may not have context, right, with all this kind of new stuff. I find a lot of people, have a lot of familiarity with maybe the woo-woo or the exotic when it comes to things like meditation and maybe human potential, right? Expanding your consciousness isn't like a new topic. But what kind of is a new topic is this idea of governmental disclosure, or the idea of the government basically coming clean on what was been 80 years of secrecy regarding military classified programs exploring things like UFO, UAP, non-human intelligence. In the sci-fi world, you can think of that like an alien, right? And frankly, there's been a lot of money, a lot of research, and a lot of advancements on this. And it's progressed to the point that they've existed in these compartmentalized echo chambers, right? Because they're secret. And no one really has oversight over them anymore. And they've kind of just ran their own track. So something really important happened in 2022. There was a intelligence officer, a really brave whistleblower named David Grush, who testified to Congress as well as other basically authoritative bodies within the intelligence community, and put his life on the line to say, hey, there's something very wrong going on within the government. There's a lot of money being spent on things that we're not being told about. And there's perhaps some of the greatest advancements in human history being withheld, right? Like, what
Yeah.
would that change for us if we perhaps had a common understanding that we're not alone in the universe, right? There is new science advancements. There are new physics, right? There are new ways to understand the world. And maybe throughout all of this, the most important thing isn't necessarily what's out there, right? Like out in space, but it's actually all right here. Like our minds, our thoughts, and our consciousness are actually like very paramount to this universe and the experience that we're having. That's a very long-winded way of saying that, some very proud whistleblowers like David Grush began trying to pave some ways to break open what have been some wrongdoings in the past. So that was 2022. I began kind of going through what was frankly a mental health crisis earlier before this, where I was processing a lot of childhood trauma. And my childhood trauma was related to my programmatic experiences in what were one of these classified military programs that unfortunately occurred in childhood, right?
Hmm.
So, how did I get started in all of this? Well, when I was a child, I was identified by the Gifted and Talented Education Program to be someone who had some extrasensory perception, right? So, how did they find that? Well,
Yeah.
Right.
Gifted and Talented Education basically tests students across the US, right? It's actually a global program. There's kind of all these mismatched entities. And that in and of itself is very benign. It's very good. There's a lot of great things that come out of gifted and talented education. However, on the darker side of the world, right, some of these secret governmental entities like intelligence agencies, right, when they're trying to do something secretly, they use plausible deniability, right? So they want to work through something. It's
Yeah.
not going to say, "Hi, come into the CIA program," right?
Right.
The CIA is going to work through something like a vehicle to basically hide itself, right?
Sure.
So this is what's been occurring for at least since the 70s and the 80s, from my understanding.
And
And
how old exactly were you when you were first approached?
I was first approached when I was age 9 or in the fourth grade.
Wow. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah. So how was I
Okay.
approached and all of that? So there's
Yeah.
some testing that happens. I ended up being a strong speller. So I had an ability to spell at like a college level in the fourth grade. And that attracted some attention, right? I was reading way above my average. And what happened with me is a psychologist, third party, began coming in to work with me in the school district, right? And I was told not to tell my parents about this.
Really?
This psycho
Wow.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. This psychologist began grooming me, right? So I was told I had a very special brain. I could see things that other kids couldn't see, right? And he wanted to form a relationship with me. He's my special friend, and he knew how special I was, and we were going to do all these cool things, right? Like he understood me, right?
Yeah.
And what they were basically looking at is I had the ability to both be essentially like precognitive, and I was a strong visualizer. So to explain my process of spelling, I would explain to the psychologist, yeah, I can visualize the world in my mind, right? And I can just pick apart each letter. And that was very interesting to them, right? So
Sure.
strong visualizers, people with these abilities to just kind of have basically express neurodivergence and use their brains in different capacities are of very high interest to those within these programs. Um, so that started a relationship, right, for about 2.5, 3 years, where again, my parents were not completely fully told. My parents were told a different
Wow.
story. They were
Yeah.
told that myself, Jordan, was expressing anxiety in the classroom, and that was normal for a gifted and talented kid, right? Like they're special. Hey, and we're going to offer you support, right? Here's a psychologist we recommend, and you
Wow.
should send your kid to him after school, right? So everything's happy. I'm a happy kid. I have a best friend, right, who's being really cool with me, like a special friend that's coming into school.
And your parent, you've obviously had conversations with your parents about this at this point, and like
Oh yeah.
you know,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I would imagine being a 9-year-old, that's a lot to carry of like, I have this secret from my parents. Did that alienate you from your parents? Meanwhile, I'm observing that my parents are worried about me, or was that just kind of like just not even in your consciousness at the time?
Yeah, it was. Really what got hard, the hardest part of this was so like at age 9, fourth grade, this relationship develops. Things are like very normal, right? For like a year, right? When I got into about the sixth grade, I began to realize like this was weird, right? None of the other kids were doing this. I'm
Sure.
getting pulled out of classes. I have to go do all this dumb stuff, tests, this. I don't want to do it anymore, right? Um,
Yeah.
and I just knew something was wrong, right? I knew something was wrong at this point. However, right, as a kid, a very young kid, you're in a double bind situation, right? Well, like, oh my gosh, no one's going to believe me, right? My parents are
Mm-hmm.
going to say, why didn't you tell me sooner, right? So
Mm-hmm.
all of these psychological manipulative practices, were kind of like exploited and applied to keep those in the program, like myself, quiet.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, too, at the same time, I soon discovered that there was really no way out of this. So if I began expressing problems within the school district, it would all funnel back to like one person in special education.
Mm,
And then that person was kind of the liaison for the
mm,
program. And I would have no luck. So if I went to my teacher and said, like, hey, I'm not having a good time, they're doing weird stuff to me in there, I don't want to go, that teacher would run that up to the principal. The principal would say, that's a special education student. We need to go to special ed. And there's one person at the top of special ed, right? So this
sure.
created this loop where I felt trapped as a kid, really in it. Um, and everything changed for me in late 2007. So in late 2007, at this point, I had still been in the public school system. I'm seeing psychologists outside of school, right, and after hours. And they're coming to see me inside the school, administering testing, doing experiments, writing different trials on me. In late 2007, I was sent to basically a facility with another psychologist. And I was introduced to my first piece of exotic technology. And I say the word exotic because I can't even fully tell you what it was, but I can tell you my experience of it and how I understood it to operate. Um, what they were looking for were kids like me who had this ability to manipulate their consciousness, get into different brainwave states, and essentially just exert some control over your thoughts and intentions, could sometimes have the ability to interface telepathically with these exotic technology pieces that they were trying to understand.
So, up until this point, prior to
Mhm,
being taken to the separate facility, what
mhm,
types of tests were they
mhm.
running? What were the things that they were doing at that point?
Yeah, they were highly, highly interested in kind of like two things. One being empathy, two just being large personality scoring. So basically, this would look like once a week, I was running like a 200 question neuropsychological test. Like it was just nonstop of
Wow.
testing.
Hmm.
In that, they were administering things like neurofeedback, transcranial treatment, right? Things that like
So,
may not have
attaching
been.
stuff to
Mhm,
your head and looking
mhm,
at a computer while you're taking a
mhm,
physical
mhm,
written test, answering
mhm.
questions, and they're watching
Yeah.
your brain waves. Okay.
Correct, yeah, and I'll tell
Okay.
you why that is, right? Because our brain waves are really interesting. We have different brain wave states. For example, we have, like, an alpha, a beta, a theta, and a gamma, right?
Right.
And as we progress through the day consciously, as we wake up and go back to sleep and dream, we're navigating these different brain wave states. So if you think of just, like, conceptually, like, throughout your day, well, I experience reality different when I'm laying in bed than versus when I'm out and running throughout the day. Well,
Right.
part of that's because you're in different brainwave states. So a psionic, right, a psychic, or just anyone who's really gifted at manipulating the consciousness, they're doing that typically by ways of actually ascending and descending your brainwave states.
Sure. Okay. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, because it sounds like, the governmental agency would have had a couple of decades or maybe 3, 4 decades of theoretical scaffolding behind that was informing
Mhm.
exactly what they were doing with you. Like, so there would have been benchmarks. There would have been of like, this wasn't their first time doing this, right? So it's like this was a continuation of something that started. And so I want to hear about the,
Hmm.
the technology that you just alluded to. But then
Mhm.
as you're explaining that, like, also let us know, in your view, the theory behind all like what is happening actually
Mhm.
that you've come to
Yeah,
understand. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I want to again just kind of like caveat for the listeners here too. Like there's some uncomfortable truths and there's like a dark history to this. The reason I'm speaking out and the reason that I'm speaking out so boldly and transparently is because I truly believe that we just need to shine light on this because part of the reason that this has been allowed to fester and grow is because it lives in secrecy
Right.
because no one knows about this. So I think the only way for us to really progress forward and kind of get to this like next chapter collectively, it's going to require us to understand the painful sins of the past, so we don't repeat them. But also remember, we're being challenged to do something new, and we
Hmm.
can let go of those ways at the same
Hmm.
time, right?
Hmm.
Um, Yeah, so I just kind of want to add that because there's actually a message of hope and optimism and excitement throughout all of
Yes.
this
Yes.
because
Yes.
for the first time, right? While this is all challenging information to kind of like integrate, like this is changing for humanity. Like now this is finally coming out in the open. And what that means is it's no longer under control, under a secret umbrella, where no one knows about it and it's not benefiting us collectively as a civilization. Now
Hmm.
we can open it up
Hmm.
for research. Like look at what the telepathy tapes has done. Look at all of these
Right.
flywheels that are beginning to spin, and that's really the optimism and the message of hope to retain in all of this. So while there's like a
Absolutely.
truth and reconciliation that I do hope happen, I transparently, stand my flag and hey, I believe in justice, but I also believe that we can just heal, right? And I'm more
Yes. Yes.
concerned with healing right now.
Very well said. I'm
Yes.
ready. Yes.
And we commend you. I mean, I think that all of those things can be true and are true, and it also you should be recognized for the bravery, that it's taking, and because it's a huge responsibility as well, one that you did not choose. This was not a life
Hmm.
path that you chose, and here you are
Yeah.
stepping up.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and so kudos,
Yeah, but but
beyond
bravery coupled
kudos.
with, yeah, I'm not just brave. I'm leading. I'm going to be a pioneer. I'm leading. Like this
Yeah.
is optimistic. We're going somewhere with this. And so there's a different tone to it.
Yeah.
That's really really cool. So
So
yeah.
thank you for being here, for
Yeah.
sharing, for your vulnerability. We appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, this is like a really difficult thing to navigate.
Hmm.
And interestingly enough, right, like I in the psi world, so to speak, right? If you want an honest like data point on who typically like excel the most, right, at this, it's two types of
Hmm.
people, right? It's neurodivergent, autistics, right, non-speakers,
Hmm.
and it's people
Hmm.
with a lot of empathy and a lot of trauma, right? And that's usually because I think the more like life experiences you have that like just don't compute to like mainstream reality,
Hmm.
you learn to question things differently, and it gives you a wider
Yes,
perspective to maybe things that you wouldn't notice when life is just normal, right?
totally. Yes,
So
absolutely.
the
Absolutely.
technology.
Yes, technology. Share with us this technology.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so this device was basically a crystallized sphere. And as wild as that sounds, this device has been also expressed by other people that have whistleblown before me. Randy from Crane, as part of the Navy, has talked about this on Jesse Michael's show as well. And this device was something that basically would telepathically link with you. How exactly were the mechanisms happening? I cannot tell you the science behind it, but for those that have
Hmm.
explored this world or have an understanding of neuroscience, this was basically like a brain neural interface that was just decades and decades and decades ahead of what's commercially available out there. And this
Hmm.
interface would be used to telepathically link and basically shift your consciousness into, right? So, what does that mean, shifting your consciousness? Well, let's talk about consciousness. Like, what is this? How does all this kind of glue together, right?
Hmm.
Um, so, consciousness is a little bit of this term that's a bit oversaturated, a bit overused, and I'm a person that's contributing to that, not necessarily helping. We need a lot more voices in this space, right? Kind of doing this research and getting new science out to better term this. But I tell listeners, like, think of two things. If you think of your consciousness, right, it's like your reality, your experience, the I am in this kind of experience of life with your body.
Hmm.
We also know from if you've ever had like a near death experience, if you've ever had a lucid dream, if you've ever had just a really weird, like, wait a second, was I seeing something? Did I experience something more? Um, consciousness to me in my world, right, is non-local. Well, what does that mean? Right now, materialistic science, a lot of what we understand consciousness is, so we have this theory of locality, meaning that our brains, right, this tissue is just producing consciousness. And it's kind of more of a happy accident, right? There's not really much hope there in the Western model for like, yeah, you're told like, yeah, there's like religion for that. Good luck, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Um, However, non-locality is this concept that consciousness is more like a field, and we're receiving this experience and kind of like transmitting it back and creating a loop, right? So non-locality means like, hey, it's not just this isolated thing that my brain's experiencing. It's more like we're all connected to the same thing, right? We're all kind of slivers of a much larger pie. And like somewhere, if you could imagine a ladder, as you kept applying this concept up, like you might get to this concept of like a unified God, or the concept of source, or the concept of whatever multidimensional metaphysical theory that kind of works for you. But I kind of explain like this non-locality of consciousness like that. You have to think also like a metaphysical scale up as you go with it.
Yep. Yep.
It's so wild sometimes. Like, I literally, yesterday, I was listening to some podcasts and it was like very alien specific, talking about, what is it, the uh, A3 Atlas, or I don't know if you know anything about that. But, and then I switched mindsets to the topics of like consciousness. And I was like, when we talk about UFOs, ETs, space, black holes, like these are all physical things, right? When we talk about them, we talk about them in the context of them being physical things. But then you have things like consciousness, telepathy, other dimensions. If people have NDE experiences, they talk about how they've, gone to a different dimension. But all of those things are talked about in a sense of how it exists in the mind or subconsciously in the conscious space. So yesterday, I literally came home from driving in the car and I was like, but Zach, like, where do these two things meet? Where does this interdimensionality of space, black holes, UFOs, and then we talk about our subconscious and our consciousness and telepathy and other dimensions. How do they come together and how do they support each other and where do they overlap? And I don't know if you have the answers to those questions, but I literally was just talking about this yesterday.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is what I'll offer, right? So like I don't have answers to those questions specifically. But I do have ways of providing concepts to like help you find those answers yourselves, right?
Sure.
Because I truly believe that this is kind of the problem with disclosure, right? This is one of the problems with disclosure. I call it like almost this consciousness problem. And if you like were to look at the US right now, like take San Francisco, for example, and think of like 2010 onwards, right? Like tech world boom, Silicon Valley's taken off, and like SF was like light years ahead, right? And now think of like a rural area in America, right? It's just like completely different paradigm. So like in SF, you've seen this huge influx of like growth and understanding, and it's like we haven't fully like scaled that across the world. We haven't done that in technology. We haven't done that well as like a country,
Right.
and it's almost like this consciousness thing too, where it's just like we don't often compare like what perspectives that we're coming from as we exchange information, right?
Right.
So it's like, what makes sense to me is often not what's going to make sense from you. And there's no way of me actually like understanding what's going to make sense for you. And part of the problem that we've had is by restricting this information that would be like in the disclosure world of like science, our understanding of consciousness, the understanding of other intelligences out there, that we may not be alone in the universe. We've like held our own selves back, right? Like I think with this, as you begin to like awaken this concept that there's like an awakening happening, people are challenging their own beliefs, people are just growing and evolving. I subscribe to that right now. Like I see changes. I think we're in a completely wildly different place here in 2025 than we were in 2020. And I think people like almost feel that difference too. Uh, But when you start comparing like meta theories and all of this, just remind yourself that like the thing that I share, the perspective that I offer, it doesn't have to make sense to you, right?
Hmm.
If you have
Hmm.
a way of kind of understanding this or just like follow your own thread of resonance, that's what's most important. So if there's anything I can offer to you, it's please just explore this on your own. Like
Yeah.
follow your own thread. Take a few pieces that go with it. You do not have to subscribe to my model of the universe. It changes every day for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's ever growing and ever evolving. So but yeah, so like where does all this go, right? Well,
Right.
I would call it, field theory.
Yeah.
I would say take a good look at Maxwell's field equations, and yeah, I think that quantum theory mixed with electromagnetic theories mixed with suspension of consciousness, like kind of best explain it. I don't know if like we'll ever fully understand it, but I don't know if we're
Right.
ever supposed to. I
Right.
think that's kind of like the evolution of life experience. But yeah, I subscribe and I kind of offer people this concept, right? Like the Western model is we live on planet Earth, and planet Earth is basically like this giant rock with water on it, and it has an atmosphere. We got a sun, and the universe is all material. And yeah, you have a brain, it's producing consciousness, and you're gonna live, you're gonna die, right? Well, it's been here 4 billion years, right? That's like what most people understand. That's like a pretty sad
Yeah.
world to me. And frankly, right, like our world understanding is changing and it's evolving to something much more like field theory, where it's just like, hey, this materialness, right, like this hard pillow, like it actually isn't material, it's energy, right?
Hmm.
Like this is all energy vibrating and resonating at different frequencies. And that's actually what's kind of like suspending this very material and third dimension.
Hmm.
So, well, why do I say that? Well, when you start thinking about different intelligences, right? Um, the likelihood in my mind that, oh, hey, they're all coming from a different star system or planet, and they're using some third dimension physics to get here, is probably not the case. I think actually they evolve to where maybe they don't have a body, right? Like
Hmm.
maybe their consciousness gets to this
Hmm.
point where you actually interact with the field itself.
Hmm.
And I think that's kind of the direction that we're going. And it gets interesting when you go down that track because that means you're very much in control of your own reality with your own thoughts and with your own intentions. So, with kind of this unveiling of psi and all of the training that I had as a psionic, ultimately what we are being trained is like next generation the secret, right? Like how to program
Yeah.
your subconscious, how to basically if you believe it, it will be true, right? Is the age old adage.
Manifestation.
Right.
Manifestation. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So then during this time where you were then introduced, okay, so timeline check too.
Hmm. Yep.
So this was 2007, you said, where you had
Hmm.
first been introduced to this technology. And at this point, you had been already in this program. I mean,
Hmm.
unknowingly, really.
Hmm.
How many years? Like 4 or 5
Yeah, so
years?
it's about 3 years, three
3
years at
years.
this point.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So now we're getting about 2008. So 2008, I just got introduced to that tech. Yeah.
And then you worked for how much longer were you then continuing this work, and what exactly
Hmm.
was happening during that time?
Hmm. Yeah, so this continued for 2 more years for me. So
Okay. Okay.
2008 to 2010.
Okay.
Um, After I got introduced to that piece of technology and I showed the ability to, like link with it, right, or exert some force on it,
Which meant,
I
sorry, just taking it
yep.
back for this, meaning link with it
Hmm.
with your mind consciously. You
Hmm.
were like going into a meditative state,
Hmm. Yep.
and you were
Hmm.
linking with
Hmm.
this
Yeah,
technology.
what is your like experientially, what is that
Yeah.
like for you to the
Yeah.
extent that you could describe it? Because obviously this is something you can still do. And we
Hmm.
watched you in the Skywatchers documentary doing this, right? And
Hmm.
so how does it feel different from meditation that maybe anybody
Hmm.
listening has done? So
What
yeah,
is your physical and internal experience of doing this?
Oh, this is such a good question. You guys phrased this so well too. Thank you for asking it. Yeah, 'cause this is like where I really want to offer this to people because all of this sounds so woo woo and so wacky until you actually experience it yourself, and you
Mhm.
can experience these things yourself, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, so for those that maybe are familiar with meditation, you may have been exposed to the term astral projection, right?
Mhm.
The idea of taking meditation a step further and going outside your body. Um, and what's that experience like? Well, for me, in interacting with this technology, very similar to astral projection, right? So what this would look like is we were getting into a meditative state, often with auditory stimulation, right? So we'd be using things like binaural beats,
Mhm.
so different frequencies within both ears, right? So and a binaural beat, the way that it's actually functioning, which is kind of neat is it's emitting one frequency in your right and a slightly different frequency in your left. And when they meet in the middle of your hemispheres, they generate a completely new frequency.
Hmm.
So it's actually synchronizing your hemispheres in a very unique pattern.
Huh.
Hmm.
Um, so we would use auditory stimulation as well as things like different types of neural feedback later on in the program, right? So we were actually interfacing with we would have some headgear on that would actually help us do this. But at the time in the earlier stages, it was more of astral projection. So having a very intense meditation experience and actually coming out of your body visualizing yourself from the third perspective. So if I'm astral projecting, I actually have the ability to get out of my body. I
Mhm.
can see my surroundings from the third person, and I can manipulate my awareness from that third person perspective and go beyond my body, right? So we would do that process and actually in a way become meshed with the technology is what the sensation would feel like.
Wow. We're
Yeah,
both just
I
like,
I I didn't know we were gonna. I mean, I'll be honest, guys. Yeah, I didn't know we were going this route. So I mean, we're in the deep
No,
rabbit hole. But hey,
I had no idea that that was because I've done some reading on astral projecting, and I know what it is. If you don't, you're listening, do a quick Google of it. Um, but that's interesting. I didn't realize that that was essentially what it is. So when you are in this meditative state, you're leaving your body, and do you physically see your body when you're coming out of it?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
this
yeah. Yep. Go ahead.
and this is something that you're still able to do, and
This is something that I actually teach people to do. Yeah,
yeah,
so you can
okay.
we'll list links later. But
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
this is something that I'm actually teaching people to do.
Okay.
So yes, this is still anyone can experience this. Anyone can experience this. A couple things, of course. Certain people like myself, there are dispositions, right? There are things, whether it's like genetic or just whatever it is, you may
Mhm.
be gifted and you may have a little bit of an easier experience getting into that. However, it's accessible to everyone.
Mhm.
What it really requires is, like we kind of said, with the manifestation mindset, is you have to get to the point where your subconscious believes that this is possible
Right.
because it's the belief in being possible that allows your subconscious to take a step back and allows your conscious mind to kind
Right.
of hop up front and actually have the experience. So if what happens with a lot of people, what I mean by that is if you've ever meditated before and maybe you were slipping away, or maybe you had a psychedelic trip, you tried a little mushrooms, whatever your experience in altered consciousness maybe, if you've ever kind of felt the oh wait, am I going too far? Am I kind of crazy? And you can kind of bring yourself out of an experience and shift it,
Mhm.
right? The same concept applies here. So it's just like energy training, right? Or like the ways of a monk. You have to be incredibly sharp and focused with your thoughts to have the best experience with it.
So you continued into the program until you said 2010, right?
Yep, in
Yeah.
2010, and yep.
And then so even maybe in the program and then after, you could just take the timeline of your whole totality of experience with this. Tell
Mhm.
us a couple of standout experiences. I know standout is a weird word, but experiences in this state that really left a mark on you, and what those were like? Like, were they did you have any contact experiences? So,
I mean, it wasn't like normal by this point for you, or were there these moments where you're like, holy shit, like what the fuck is going on? What am I
Yeah,
doing? You
yeah.
yeah,
know,
you're
like,
still only
I'll be
12, so I'd
very,
want to tell my mom.
yeah, yeah. I'll be very honest. Yeah. So this, I'm a very charismatic guy, right? And I've done a lot of healing myself, and I'm speaking out to help give others like me, right, have been
Mhm,
exposed to this, their opportunity for healing too.
mhm.
But don't miscount that, like, this was a very dark kind of place, right? And this
Yeah.
was a
Yeah,
very kind of dark chapter.
right,
This was kind of being used against your will, right? So the
right.
facility, the school, how did it function, right? For those, again, familiar with special ed, this was a legitimate facility, kind of in a Catholic church umbrella.
Yeah.
And it was referral only, special education, about 40 kids in the facility, all 8 one classroom, psychologists on staff, psychiatrists on staff, all of that.
Where in the
Um,
country is
this
this?
is New York.
This is
Yeah,
in New
yeah, New
York. Okay.
York. Yep.
Okay.
Um, so that kind of existed, and what was really happening is it was not all bad, right?
Hmm.
Just like an intelligence operation, they're running through things and using different things as covers. So out of those 40 kids, there was about, I think it was like 8 to 10, like myself, that were doing school a little bit differently. So we
Hmm.
had classrooms on like the second floor. I would attend school like 3 days a week typically. And then 2 days a week, I was not on floor two. I was in the basement working with a special team, right, doing
Wow.
these types of experiments. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
And to kind of just speak to some of the dark stuff without getting too much into it, there were like substances being used here. So this was like a very, very strong abuse of the mental health system. I was on about 8 different antipsychotics within the program, different things that they were trying to do neurochemically to help stimulate performance for me. Sober autistic non-speakers, right, that I worked with, who typically have the hardest experience in the experiments that we'd be running, because again, they didn't have a voice. And that was the hardest thing for me to watch as a child, because like, yeah, I could kick and scream,
Right.
I could use my body, but like,
Yep.
they didn't have a voice, and they couldn't use their body. So when they were trying to really exert some unique experimentation, that was a much easier candidate to use. And that's the real thing that I transparently say cannot happen anymore. And
Ugh.
Hmm.
that's what's really motivating me to be here.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
cannot even begin to fathom witnessing that, going through that, to be an unknowing parent. I have to imagine there are probably still parents that have no idea.
So yeah, and
Yeah.
then like the telepathy tapes is old news for the government, right? Clearly, they had already identified nonverbal autistic um, kids as being adept at
Gifted, yeah,
this. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
Wow. Um,
How are the hot lunches though? Are they pretty good?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Again, guys, there's a lot of heaviness. There's a lot here, and I'll make sure to keep kind of wrapping up on like what's on the horizon, because there is good, right? Again, it's heavy to hear, but with all of this coming out, there are many brave folks just like me, that are doing the same thing,
right.
and we need to carefully navigate this, because the also it's like all of those folks that I did work with, like, I'd offer them hope and forgiveness. I really would, because the other unfortunate aspect to this is like many people were in double binds themselves.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
hey, if you find
Right.
yourself in one of these secret programs, like, it's not like, guys, I don't want to do this anymore, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
your life's not normal.
Right.
So I think that's been the kind of cardinal sin, is just like there's no winners here on any
Right.
side
Yeah.
of it. So if we just talk about it and we just finally get the information out there and we show how it's been allowed to function, then we can make changes and we can heal. And that means we can have a whole new understanding of reality as we
Hmm.
learn to integrate this in our own lives.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think when more understandings of psi and the ability to influence your own reality become become more well known, I think our world's going to so rapidly shift into like, hey, this is going to become not only like this is going to become the new thing to do. Like this is
Hmm.
changes education, right?
Totally.
If consciousness is a substrate of the entire universe, which in my opinion it is, then understanding how to manipulate and express your own consciousness means that's how we grow and evolve, right?
In ethical
Perhaps
ways.
we
Imagine that's a
yeah.
thing. Like,
You don't even have to
we
leave your house, right? You don't need a
right.
rocket ship. Go sit on your couch, right? Try some meditation and go see the universe. Like that's really what's possible.
Right, right.
Yeah, and that's that. Also, understanding of telepathy more is going to change
Mhm,
everything too. I see a
mhm.
lot of the kind of pressure in this disclosure world is like no one knows how to communicate any of this because there are sins of the past. There's concerns about all this tech, but no one's talking about like, hey, if you open your heart, good things happen, right? Like, can we start talking about that?
I
Can we
love
start
that
talking about
perspective.
how, like, for example, like here's some of the research that I've done, just to kind of show this is at the experience that you guys had shared with me at Telepathy Camp. I have done with other circles in research environments where basically we've done a 30-minute group meditation with a shared audio playlist. So all of us are in coherence, all of us are synchronized, and all of us are kind of thinking loving thoughts at the same time. And we would put random number generators or quantum RNGs around us, which would basically just say statistically, it's measuring the field around you, right? Photons dividing, and you should have a statistical balance, right? When we place RNGs around our meditation and actually host it, we drive statistical changes like 6 sigmas. And you can practice this by yourself. You can go to like a flash RNG just on Google, like try meditating in front of it and thinking of love. And you'll actually perhaps be able to move the random number generator just by with your thoughts. So if you want an interesting thing to try, I recommend starting there because you can actually see hey, how easy this is to do.
Noted, noted. I want, being mindful of time, want to talk about what has come from this and what you're doing now, but I want to wrap up a little bit of,
Your exit from the program
yeah,
and the
exit from
Yeah,
bridge
yeah, yeah,
to where
yeah,
you are
yeah,
now.
yeah, and not
yeah.
only that, but I guess, upon your exit, were there any, to your knowledge, findings? Did you, during that
Hmm.
time, I guess more specifically those 2 years in which you were piloting with your
Hmm.
consciousness, subconscious,
Hmm.
conscious,
Hmm.
uh,
Yep.
um,
Yeah.
what was the conclusion?
Yeah, yeah. So here's the conclusion, right? So what I experienced that was essentially a recruitment channel, right?
Mhm.
And to better understand this, what was next up for me was to be sent to a boarding school. Right. So basically the next step, which probably would have happened after 2010, was I would have been sent away. I would have been removed from my parents, and that probably would have been the last, right? I would have been sucked into
Wow.
some military program, and that probably would have been my life.
Wow.
By the grace of God, in 2010, there were basically my mother. Was trying to get me out of this, right? Knew something was up, knew something was wrong. I
Mhm.
was too, right? Like crying in front of the
Mhm.
superintendent, trying to move states and like being denied. New York State finally got involved and threatened to audit the facility. And when that happened, they returned me back to the public school district, and the
Oh,
facility's since been shut down, of course. So I got hastily returned to the public school district. And for what this looks like in records, right? So again, I have been leveraging, I have worked channels, within government, giving this evidence and documents to try to say, hey, like here it is. Go look.
mhm,
To
mhm.
date, no one's done anything, and that's really what's driving me speaking out. But the cover, right, that shifted me in there and all of these other kids was typically mental health, right? So it was anxiety. Jordan's incredibly mentally ill, cannot be supported in the public school system, needs to go to this place to get better, right? So I had 5 years of like what says I'm incredibly mentally ill. At one point, I was on, I believe it was a dozen different medications, 8 of them being
Wow.
antipsychotics. And then in 2010, I got returned back to the school district. The special education department retested me neuropsychologically. I tested perfectly. I was released from all my diagnoses of mental health, and I was released from all my
Wow.
medications within 1 year. And then I did everything in my power to dissociate it away because I realized that the school wasn't safe. The world wasn't safe. Like how would I ever explain this? And my
Yeah.
pathway forward, was putting it away. That changed in 2022 when David Grush stepped out in front of Congress. I said, "Hey, finally, right? Someone's doing the work," and I began doing my part, right? Getting my documents, getting my evidence, and trying to get them to the right people to work through this. And that's where I met, as you saw in the Skywatcher series, individuals like Jacob Barber, who also had been exposed to some of the same atrocities that I have, and also standing up for what's right and bringing attention to this. If anyone is curious, right, Jacob too has really put his life on the line and communicated a lot of this, getting into both the programmatic nature of the child abuse claims, as well as the good side, right? Well, what does this actually mean for us, right? What is this going to mean when this information becomes rolling out and we actually get the opportunity to integrate it? And that's, again, what's exciting. So please, check him out on YouTube. There's some great podcasts as well that kind of catch up on this. But with all of that being said, right, that's where we were. This is where we're coming from. And finally, we're getting an opportunity to heal, right?
Yeah.
And I encourage folks that are like now getting exposed to all of this new information. It can be incredibly overwhelming and like destabilizing for your worldview. Like one, wow, there's like been the world's not what I thought, right? Like there were shadows hidden in plain sight, things were darker. Two, like, what do you mean? What does all of this mean? Right? Like what am I supposed to do with this information? And that's what I hope to offer, as a voice speaking out more of just ways to better understand this, better understand the world, and better understand ourselves.
Yeah. I really want to get into what this has inspired you to do. And we're super, super behind what you're doing with what you shared with us. And so, share with the listeners. I think I'm going to butcher this quote, but it was Nikola Tesla who said something. We're going to advance humanity or science more in 10 years as soon as we realize that consciousness is at the basis of everything and materialism is not what it is than we have in the last like 100 years. And I know you believe that and are animated by that too with this experience that you've had. So it's like full gas. What the fuck can we learn about, what anything even is and what consciousness is and what we're capable of. And so tell us about where you're going.
Yeah, what has this inspired for you now? What projects are you working on? I'm very inspired by everything that you're doing. So please
Oh,
share
thank you
with the
so
listeners.
much.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first project is called the Telepathy Center. So the Telepathy Center right now is a digital collective of creators that we're forming that's launching on November 11th. What we're doing with the Telepathy Center is we're taking folks that are already practicing this, right? Like animal communicators, right? Like how to communicate with your pet. Like that exists. There are people out there who know how to do that. I can demonstrate effects. In the same token, right? Like understanding remote viewing. Like, hey, I lost my keys. Like, we can give you some practical advice that can actually help you if you're willing to listen. So we are rolling out the Telepathy Center on November 11th, and it's going to be a collective of creators that are just displaying their own courses and their own content to better understand this world. Telepathy just being one sliver of the large pie, but psionic just meaning the same thing as telepathy, right? Like what we're going to find throughout all of this is it's much more interconnected. And all of these different aspects, whether it's remote viewing, whether it's telepathy, whether it's channeling, whether it's intuition, whether it's any of this extrasensory perceptual stuff, all of it's kind of like within the same bucket. And it's just about pulling out different lenses that you have in your own toolbox, better understanding it. So yeah, super pumped for that. The grand vision with the Telepathy Center is to, in later years, 26 and 27, get this to a brick and mortar styled institution where we have basically on staff 3 different types of people. Right? Number one being PhD researchers that can validate things like animal telepathy. So if someone here is demonstrating that, like, hey, you can be telepathic with your pet, I want a PhD researcher in there actually validating, like, what stimuli is happening with the pet, what's happening with the dog owner, and can we actually show this? Because that's cool, right? That's useful information to know. At the same time, I'm trying to bridge the world into more of the Eastern mysticism. So people that still understand energy work, some of the more yogic traditions. Basically take these 3 pillars of Eastern traditions, Western traditions, and research and put them together under the common banner of consciousness research and see how far we can progress our own understandings. So that is, that's the grand vision with the T Center.
Amazing. I cannot wait.
Yeah, totally. And we have dreams of Disco doing research as well. I'm just so fascinated with the intersection of science and spirituality and the fact that they're like, we are now culturally ready to go, we should look over there. It's a legitimate question. You know, maybe matter is in mind after all. Maybe like mind doesn't come out of, it's just like, it's a really
both.
exciting time.
It's both.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the thing. It's actually
Yeah.
not one or the other. It's all of it. Yeah.
Right. 100%. Exactly. So then, in addition to that, you're doing the Night Under the Stars is something that, I mean, that's essentially what we experienced at Telepathy Camp, correct? And that is, you're going to do a better job explaining this than I will. So I'm just going to hand it over.
I'll hang up and listen.
No, Night Under the Stars. So Night Under the Stars was a concept born at Esalen Institute last year. Also kind of, birthed right before the Skywatcher series and contains some of the tools that we use in the Skywatcher series psionically. But Esalen was purely this spiritual experience that I shared actually last year today, October 17th, 2024. As I think about it.
Wow.
Yeah. This day last year, I led a group of about 100 people. We had about 30, it was 100 people at this ANIA Explorers Club event. So basically, we had venture capital billionaires, we had consciousness experts, spiritual experts, we had some amazing mindsight people from India, some amazing children doing great telepathy and great like mindsight activities. Just this whole clash over a week of all of the things that we just talked about, like psi, consciousness, UAP, spirituality. What happens if we stick 100 people together? That's the line, right? And then Friday, I led an experience with a meditation that you can find on my website, jordanjozak.com. We'll link that later. But you can find the same playlist that we used at Esalen, and you can actually do this yourself. We led this 30-minute meditation where we all synchronized, meaning that we started the tracks at the same time. We lay down on the coast, and I led the group in a visualization, basically of just green coming out of our heart, kind of going up into the sky. Green kind of being this like universal symbol of love within the universe. What happened is after the 30-minute meditation was revised, we had the most insane interactions with a phenomena that I've personally ever had to this point. That included 2 golden plasma orbs coming within 100 yards of the group, a blue orb, if you've ever been to Esalen Institute, know where the hot baths are, and I have these photos, I'll release these actually. There is literally a blue orb right next to the bathhouse, and people that were in the bathhouse were
Wow.
like, "What is this thing?"
Oh
outside the
my
bath.
God.
There were other plasmoid-looking things coming out of the ocean that came up to the coast and actually interacted with people. So yeah, I'd love to share more about the experience. It was one of the most magical times. And that day, we also realized, like, hey, one, magic's real. Okay. Magic's real. Two, there is more to the world. There is more to the universe. We do not have it all figured out yet. And when people actually experience that firsthand, like, oh my God, like, yeah, there's a blue orb. Like, it's very real now. If you didn't believe it before, like, it can happen. When that actually it happens, I realize that it changes everything for people, almost like it's an
Mhm.
unlock. Like it gives you a permission slip to be like, hey, all the weird stuff that you wanted to explore before, but you never really did, like now you can. Like, let me just go show you
Yeah.
that weird stuff can happen. So we
Mhm.
are offering that more in like a containerized experience. We have an event schedule coming up also on November 11th, this coming up here shortly, where in different cities across the US, we're going to be leading the same experience that we did at Esalen. Absolute no guarantees on
Right.
exhibitions from the phenomenon.
Right.
But what we do is through this 30-minute meditation, we do a large group share afterwards, as well as collect research. So environmentally, we're doing things to help make this case that, hey, this meditation or just by sharing an intention and group coherence, like we're changing reality. Like we can measure this, right?
Mhm.
Do we fully understand what it means for us? Not yet, but the fact that something's changing and is measurable is at least enough reason to look, in my opinion. So we're taking Night on the Stars to different cities and giving people the opportunity to hopefully experience the phenomenon themselves, but primarily have a shared meditation experience that's synchronized with tracks can be one of the most powerful unlocks for people. And oftentimes coming out of the experience like you guys had, we do a group share and many people like experience telepathy. You begin to realize that the person over there had the same vision that you had or the
Mhm.
same thing come up for them. And it can be a really opening experience. So yeah, I'm excited to bring that and share that more with the world.
Yeah, and you're going to be, correct me if I'm wrong, more intentional about this. People are going to be hooked up to biometrics, or so you'll be
Mhm.
monitoring their biometric data, their brainwave states collectively, and then you're monitoring the environment as well, so you can start to find any correlations between individual internal state change, group internal state change, and synchronization there with anything that happens in the environment. So drawing this line between, wow, group meditation can change not only my reality but our reality and then the greater reality around me. Is that a fair representation of what you're ultimately trying to do, to like scientifically map this with that kind of data?
Totally. So there's actually three different things with Night on the Stars. Number one, there are research events that are
Mhm.
exactly like you described, where we are
Okay.
rolling out with environmental sensors, biometrics, EEG, and we're actually giving people the opportunity to volunteer, like in a trial and a study, to say,
Mhm.
hey, let's measure our brainwaves when we're doing this. And now let's also run the best environmental sensor. So if let's say something comes in the sky over here, right? I can have the same timestamp of the EEG spiking for the group over here to start understanding some correlation. One of the big problems with the way that we're gonna, I think, if we're taking the old way within our kind of like constraints of our scientific approach as we get into this is we have the tendency to try to control and constrain and isolate things and understand them through experiments, right? So,
Mhm.
like causal effect, what can we take away and what can we isolate to better understand how something works? I don't think that's going to work well for consciousness. I think really we don't even know where we should be looking yet. So, what
Right.
we need to do is start just generating some noise and making sure that we're finding the signal within it before we start worrying about naturally constraining from the front end. So, yeah, it's an opportunity to have hopefully like a chance of creating a data set that might really impact the world.
So, and that was the question I was going to ask is with all of this, what is the ultimate goal?
Mhm.
What is the hope?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I'll add to that. That's one of the three for Night on the Stars. A secondary one is a multi-day event that is consciousness disclosure, psi focused, where we actually have guest speakers
Okay.
come in, like
Okay.
myself. So if you're someone who is into this, you're having experiences, you want to come meet and speak with some of the experts in the space. We're giving you the opportunity to come not only experience this in that setting, but also work with others and be exposed to community. And lastly, we are doing just experiential only events. So just think beautiful field, beautiful sky, beautiful coast, wherever, some great people, a shared meditation, and no sensors, no cameras, just connection. What's the goal? What's the goal? Man, well, a more collectively unified world. How about that? You
I
know,
love that. Yeah.
maybe a world where we learn to let go of control structures and
Hmm.
patriarchal paradigms, right? Like where
Hmm.
we have to take this masculine brute force approach on controlling everything. I think we're being challenged to take the next step to level up in humanity. I think that this might actually like be the most interesting time to be alive. Like,
Yeah.
hey, someone's saying there's UFOs, someone's saying there's consciousness stuff. Like at the end of the day, I think that like this is how you evolve. Like it's not easy. I think Terrence McKenna said this in a quote once where he's just like, hey, like the evolution of consciousness is not like normal. It's not just like everything's great and we're leveling up. He's like, everything's a nightmare. Like the world's burning down. Things are coming everywhere. He's like, you don't take a jump when it's easy. You take a jump when there's all of these things happening.
Yeah.
So I subscribe to the idea that I think that it's not just the idea of aliens or the fact that there's something else in this universe with us. Um, this is about us. This is about the potential within us as humans. This is about our own sovereignty and our ability to basically like control our own reality. Like we can do that. You get to have choices, and I think um, yeah, we're going into a world where I hope truth and transparency actually drive the outcomes, not control and secrets.
Ah, bringing a tear to my eye. I'm not even kidding. I'm getting emotional over here. I'm also 8 months pregnant, but still.
Oh, congratulations! Congrats,
Thank
congrats,
you.
congrats.
Thank you. Thank you. Amazing. I very well said. This has just been such an amazing gift of a
Yeah.
conversation.
And
And
you have a very unique life experience, skill set. As you've mentioned, it contained a lot of trauma that, you're transmuting into
mhm,
gold and hopefully the benefit of us all in a more healed world as you've described. And that's just so I'm getting emotional. So inspiring and admirable. And we're gonna be following your journey here for sure. We're very interested in what you're doing. We're gonna report on what you're doing. And so yeah, I mean just thanks for coming on.
yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I have a strong feeling that Disco might see if you are willing to come back at any point.
I so am. I so am.
We are. I have a strong feeling that
Yeah.
our listeners will hear from you again. And I mean, Zach and I are invested, and I think uh, as your research continues, as you continue doing the amazing work that you're doing, we will most certainly find ways to be a part of that. So thank you. So grateful for what you're doing and for sharing and your bravery. And we look forward to seeing what it is that you accomplish, because I know that it's just going to be incredible to watch. We're very lucky to be watching it all happen. So thank you.
Mm. Oh, my love. Like, I'm gonna tear up now. Like, I'm gonna tear up now. I would love to be back on. You guys are so wonderful. For everyone that's listening to like thanks for listening. Like I'm learning to tell a story too. Like this is a difficult kind of clunky thing to talk about because
Mhm.
like we can't let go of something without acknowledging it first,
Mhm.
right? And we're very much in that process, and I think that's going to continue for the rest of this fall. Kind of, I think we're going to see more of this disclosure kind of come up in
Mhm.
the news cycle. But my message to everyone that's listening is open your heart. The truth is inside of you. The government does not have secrets. It's all inside of you.
Oh,
And retain that and keep that truth as the most paramount and sacred thing in your life.
amazing.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Jordan. We will talk to you soon. And thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Great to see you guys. Bye.